I'm W. George Johnson. I'm W. George, the exact opposite of George W. Because when it was my turn to go to Vietnam, I went instead of hiding out from the military like George Bush, the deserter, our deserter-in-chief.
What year did you go?
I was in Vietnam in 1965, 64 and 65. I was in the U.S. Navy. I was in the Gulf of Tonkin.
And how did you feel about the war then?
Well, I was a sailor and I was doing what I was supposed to do, but I just happened to be in the Gulf. I was part of the destroyer squadron that also contained the Turner Joy and the Maddox, which were the two ships involved in the so-called Gulf of Tonkin incident. We were relieved in the Gulf of Tonkin by the division that those two ships were in, and halfway back to the U.S. we had to stop because they allegedly were fired upon by North Vietnamese ocean-going torpedo boats. I had a top secret clearance and I went into all the publications, everything I could find, and I could find no references to any ocean-going torpedo boats of that type that were in the North Vietnamese Navy. So I started to suspect that it was kind of like a put-up job. And when the Turner Joy and the Maddox got back, because I was a radar operator and had gone to school with some of the radar operators on those ships, we got together and I asked them what happened, and they go, "What torpedo boats?" So for 25 years I went around telling people it was all a put-up job, and people would look at me and go, "What are you smoking? You're some kind of lefty crazy vet," and nobody believed me. And then lo and behold, we found out that it was a put-up job. But I think that just suspecting that was one of the things that made me look deeper into the history of the involvement in Vietnam. And I found out a lot of things that turned myself around, and by 1967 I was marching in my first anti-war protest, which was a demonstration outside the Selective Service Board, the draft board in Long Beach. But I also was working at the post office, and there were a lot of anti-war students and people who worked there, so they educated me real well. And I've been doing it ever since. And like that old gospel song says, I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around until there ain't no more war vets. I guess you could probably say I haven't been doing too good a job lately, but I'm still trying.
You've been a committed anti-war activist ever since?
Yes.
What else do you do? Do you do draft counseling?
I've done all those kind of things. I mostly spend most of my time working with Vets for Peace, and I'm on the National Board of Directors of Veterans for Peace, and so most of my time is dedicated to working with this organization, and I just fit well there. But I'm retired, so I get plenty of time to do it. But when I was working, I was active in my union and all that, because all these things are tied together. Workers don't have jobs, and their kids don't have schools, and people don't have health care because they spend all this money on the militarization of this society and the world. So that's what I'm about. I got 6 kids, none of them ever went in the military. I got eight grandkids and a 9th on the way, and I hope none of them ever do either.
What do you think of this war in Iraq?
Well, I don't care what anybody says. You'll never convince me it ain't a war for oil, and it ain't a war to make people like Halliburton. And when you write the check, make sure you use 2 L's. And Bechtel and all these other munition suppliers and arms manufacturers and stuff like that, is to make them rich. But I think the key factor is the oil. And I do think that if in fact, that's why I think the environmental movement is a real integral part of the peace movement, because if we demand that we have sustainable use of all kinds of things, then we can break the addiction we have to petrochemicals, because you can power a diesel engine with biodiesel. You can actually power automobile engines with just plain old vegetable oil. And so if we do all those kind of things and adopt solar and all kind of other things, then we're also fighting the military machine.
Are you familiar with these radical bicyclists?
Oh yeah, I like all those. Like, you mean, what are they called? What are they? What, that group here in town?
Critical Mass.
Critical Mass. Yeah, I think they're great, and And I've actually been caught in a couple of the things where I had to sit there in traffic, but I just sat there laughing while I watched all these other people getting angry enough to kill somebody over being late home a half an hour. You know, it's like today coming over here, it took us 30 minutes from the freeway to Civic Center Plaza because of the Folsom Street fair. But, you know, that's cool. That's the way life is. Sometimes you get slowed down, sometimes you don't. You know, so I remember coming to San Francisco on the 12th of September a couple of years ago, and it was like driving into a deserted town. So, you know, sometimes you can just fly right through, sometimes you got to wait, but we don't like to wait for anything.
You think the bicyclists are part of the anti-war movement?
I think anyone who is standing up and opposing the oil industry, the military-industrial complex, as Eisenhower called it, I think anyone, whether they're doing it consciously or unconsciously, you know, I think people who are buying electric vehicles and things like that are all helping. They may not consciously understand how the far-reaching ramifications of it, but I think every little bit helps, and I'm all for it.
Thank you very much.